Most people spend their lives trying to be liked. They smile when they want to object. They explain themselves when nobody asked. They seek approval from people they don't even respect. And because of that, they become predictable. Predictable people are rarely feared. The uncomfortable truth is that people do not fear loud individuals. They do not fear people who constantly talk about their strength. They do not fear those who demand respect. They fear people they cannot manipulate. The ancient Stoics understood this. The great strategists understood it too. While Stoicism teaches mastery over yourself, Machiavellian strategy teaches mastery over power dynamics. Combined, they create a person who is calm, difficult to control, and impossible to pressure. Not cruel, not aggressive, not emotional, just dangerous in a way most people cannot understand. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel, because the lessons you're about to hear aren't taught in schools, and most people will spend their entire lives without understanding them. The moment you stop being easy to control is the moment the world starts treating you differently. Now, here are 7 behaviors that make people secretly fear you. 1. You stop explaining yourself. One of the strongest signals of power is the absence of unnecessary explanation. Weak people feel compelled to justify every decision. They explain why they declined an invitation. They explain why they left a job. They explain why they changed their mind. They explain because they are seeking permission. Powerful people don't. The Stoics believe that if your actions are guided by reason and virtue, the opinions of others become secondary. Machiavelli understood something equally important. The more information people have about your motives, the easier you become to manipulate. Most people reveal their entire strategy because they cannot tolerate being misunderstood. That is a mistake. When you stop over-explaining, people lose access to your internal world. And when people cannot clearly predict your motives, uncertainty appears. Uncertainty creates caution. Caution creates fear. You don't owe everyone a detailed explanation for every decision you make. Sometimes a simple no is enough. Sometimes silence says everything. 2. You remain calm when others become emotional. Nothing unsettles people more than emotional self-control. Most conflicts follow a predictable pattern. One person gets emotional, the other person gets emotional, the situation escalates. The person who remains calm immediately gains an advantage. The Stoics trained themselves to separate events from emotional reactions. They understood that losing control of your emotions means surrendering control of yourself. Machiavelli viewed emotional outbursts as weaknesses that enemies could exploit. Think about what happens when someone insults you. They expect anger. They expect defensiveness. They expect retaliation. But if you simply look at them and remain composed, something strange happens. The power shifts. Now they become uncomfortable. Now they wonder what you're thinking. Now they question whether their attack worked at all. People secretly fear individuals who cannot be emotionally hijacked, because if they cannot control your emotions, they cannot control you. 3. You become comfortable walking away. Desperation destroys leverage. This is true in business. It is true in relationships. It is true in every human interaction. The person who needs the outcome the least usually has the most power. Stoicism teaches detachment from external outcomes, not because outcomes don't matter, but because dependence creates vulnerability. Machiavelli understood this from a strategic perspective. The individual willing to walk away is difficult to pressure. Most people are terrified of losing opportunities. They cling to toxic friendships. They tolerate disrespect. They stay in situations that slowly destroy their dignity. Why? Because they are afraid of scarcity. The moment you become comfortable losing something, you become harder to control. And that frightens people, because now threats stop working. Manipulation stops working. Guilt stops working. You cannot negotiate with someone who has already accepted the possibility of loss. 4. You observe more than you speak. Most people reveal themselves constantly. They talk too much. They share too much. They expose every insecurity, every plan, and every emotion. Meanwhile, the quiet observer gathers information. The Stoics emphasize listening over speaking. Machiavelli emphasized understanding human nature before acting. Together, these principles create a powerful habit: observation. When you speak less, people underestimate you. They assume silence means weakness, but silence often means calculation. While others are talking, you are learning. You notice contradictions. You notice motivations. You notice who seeks attention, who seeks approval, and who seeks power. People become uneasy around individuals who notice things, not because observation is threatening, but because it removes their ability to hide. Most people wear masks. The observer sees beneath them, and nothing makes people more nervous than feeling seen. 5. You refuse to react immediately. Modern society rewards instant reactions, instant opinions, instant outrage, instant emotional responses. But instant reactions often reveal poor self-control. The Stoics taught the importance of creating space between stimulus and response. That space is where wisdom lives. Machiavelli understood that delayed responses create strategic advantages. When someone pressures you for an immediate answer, ask yourself why. Why the urgency? Why the pressure? Why the need for instant commitment? Many manipulative people rely on speed. They want you emotional. They want you rushed. They want you thinking with impulse rather than reason. A dangerous person is difficult to rush. They think, they analyze, they wait. When others demand an answer, they often say, "I'll consider it." That simple sentence terrifies manipulators, because now their influence is weakened, and they know it. 6. You enforce boundaries without guilt. Many people confuse kindness with weakness. They think being a good person means tolerating bad behavior. It doesn't. The Stoics believe that self-respect is essential for a virtuous life. Machiavelli believed that excessive leniency invites exploitation. Both perspectives point toward the same truth. If you tolerate everything, people stop respecting you. Watch what happens when you finally enforce a boundary. The people who benefited from your weakness suddenly become angry. They accuse you of changing. They accuse you of being difficult. They accuse you of becoming cold. What they really mean is this: you are no longer easy to use. That is what bothers them. Not your boundary, their loss of access. People secretly fear individuals who can say, "This behavior is unacceptable," and then actually mean it, without guilt, without drama, without negotiation. 7. You become completely independent of approval. This is the ultimate behavior, the one that combines Stoic wisdom with strategic power. Most human behavior is driven by approval seeking. People modify their opinions to fit in. They hide their beliefs to avoid criticism. They sacrifice authenticity for acceptance. The Stoics viewed approval as an unstable and unreliable source of happiness. Machiavelli understood that public praise is often temporary and politically motivated. In simple terms, the crowd loves you today and abandons you tomorrow. Building your identity around approval is building your life on sand. When you stop needing validation, something changes. You become difficult to influence, difficult to intimidate, difficult to shame. People can no longer control you through praise, and they can no longer control you through criticism. That freedom is rare, and rare things attract attention. People may not openly admit it, but they recognize it, and they fear it. Because a person who no longer needs approval becomes capable of acting according to conviction rather than social pressure. Such people cannot easily be controlled. The behaviors that make people secretly fear you are not aggression. They are not intimidation. They are not dominance. In fact, the truly formidable individual often appears calm, polite, and composed. What makes them frightening is something much deeper. They cannot be manipulated through emotion. They cannot be controlled through approval. They cannot be pressured through fear of loss. They observe carefully. They act deliberately. They speak with purpose, and they walk away when necessary. The Stoics would call this self-mastery. Machiavelli would call it power. Either way, the result is the same. When you master yourself, other people lose the ability to master you. And that is when they begin to fear you. Not because you threaten them, but because they realize they no longer have influence over you. That realization is enough. If you found value in this video, leave a like. Not for me, but as a signal that you're committed to becoming stronger, sharper, and more self-controlled than you were yesterday. Subscribe now and join a community of people who refuse to be ruled by emotion, fear, or the opinions of the crowd. Thank you.